for this class in OneNote. And then I'll tell you guys what I want or what I need to have happen next and why. Once we get a chance to everybody get everything, your tablets all out and fired up and open up your OneNote and all that jazz. So while you guys are kind of getting that going, let me tell you what's going on. So my computer's having a lot of performance issues, as maybe we've noticed me complaining about it over the course of the last week or two. What's happening is, for all of these shared notebooks, every file or every page on your shared notebook, there's a backup temporary file that's stored on my machine. So I have like 40 or 50 gig backup files for your guys' stuff, chewing up all my resources on my machine. So what we're going to do today is I'm going to ask you guys to move anything that's not an active assignment that we're currently working on into the non-shared portion of your OneNote notebook. So just to kind of show you what I'm asking for, I'm going to pick on Bianca here and show you guys what her notebook looks like and what I'm talking about if you're not entirely clear. So if we look at Bianca's notebook, it'll open here in a second. So we have all of these. We have some notes pages. We have a homework tab. We have homework quizzes. All these things here, right? All of these that are not assignments that we're currently working on, which at this point is nothing, right? Because everything that was due was checked in on Monday or whatever, right? We're going to move into the non-shared portion of your notebook, okay? So the easiest way to do that is if you click on the first thing on your page list. See my cursor over here? I've just clicked in there. I'm going to hold down the shift button and then click on the last thing, and now everything is highlighted. I can right-click in that highlighting and pick the cut command, and it'll cut all those pages out of here. I'll then go into the non-shared portion of my notebook and paste all those in that location. Because I assume you still want to hold on to these homework assignments that you've done, or these notes that you've made, or these old homework quizzes, or whatever, are probably all things you want to hold on to, right? It'll be helpful at the end of the semester, or if you work with a tutor and you want to go back and review things that you've already done, or any of that sort of thing. That'll all be helpful. So we don't want to get rid of those. We just need to move them to a location where they're not going to get backed up onto my machine. So if you click the first thing and press, and then once the first thing is highlighted, hold down the shift button, and then click the last thing, it'll highlight everything for you. And then you can just right-click in there and cut the whole thing. Okay. If you need a hand, or if you want to check to see if you've done this right, let me know. But I'm going to give you a few minutes to kind of work on that, Bianca. So if you back up and you just go into your regular OneNote, just make a new section that's for this class and just dump it all into that section is what I would do. Yeah, be patient. Like you're probably cutting a lot of material, so it's going to take a minute for the machine to kind of catch up, and it's probably trying to sync at the same time. Yes, that would be fine. And I would say, in general, from here on out, like on Mondays after I do the homework check, I'd like you to do the same thing. Like take any homeworks that have been checked and move them back into your private notebook. And we're only going to keep in the section that's visible for me, the things that we're actively kind of working on or still need to be checked. So if you miss something and it needs to be checked, you can put it back in there, doing the same kind of process. Peter?
Show us one more time how to
Yeah, so if you pick the first thing on the list, you press and hold down the shift button. While still holding the shift button, you click the last thing on your list. Okay, and then you right click and pick cut. And then you'll just back up into like your private notebook. And you can make a section here, call it whatever class it is. And then over in the pages section, you can cut and paste the whole thing there.
When we get like a homework, we just put it in there and then bring it to our other notebook.
So what I would do is when you get assigned a homework, you can put it in the shared notebook. And if you're going to do it in OneNote, you can just do it in the shared notebook. And once it's been graded, like you have the check mark on it from me that says, okay, I've seen this, I don't need to see it again, then you can move it back into the other one. Andrew.
So when we move it to our own notebook,
Yes. Yes. Once you have it backed up for your own purposes, or even if you're like, yo, I'm never going to look at this again, you can just delete it. That's fine. Like it doesn't, I've seen it and gotten what I needed from these things. Like I've gone ahead and graded them. Now I would suggest like hanging on to things just in case like you realize that I didn't see something that you thought I did and you want, rather than having to redo a homework assignment, that you can just be like, oh, look, you see it's here. And even like you have a check mark on it. It's like, oh, okay, like we'll just go and update the grade book. Like it's a good idea to hang on to those things because I make mistakes and I don't like it, but it happens. But that's, we're just trying to do some resource management on my part because I was having a lot of trouble with like running out of space on my computer and having to do this shell game of like, okay, clearing out all these backup files everywhere though I'm not working in OneNote, because if I'm working in OneNote, it's syncing and putting them back as soon as I clear them out. And I'm running into like not having enough space to record even a lesson before like that starts crashing because it's running out of space. So it's just like, it was just getting worse and worse. And I realized at some point, it's like, look, this is the issue. Like, this is going to probably be the easiest fix without dramatically redesigning how I wanted to like turn things in on the course halfway through, which seemed dumb to want to do. Like, let's just keep the same thing. We'll just alter the procedure of where you're keeping things after they've been checked, which is not unreasonable, right? We've now had a little bit of practice on how to move them. So Andrew, you finished? You've got your stuff all moved? So let's take a look at his and just kind of show you what the final product should look like. And Andrew's had a lot of experience here. So I still see everything here. I'm betting, though, that if I go and I sync the notebook, pretty quickly it'll catch up and everything will wipe out of there. You might need to sync on your end also, Andrew. But I'm betting by in a moment or two, that'll all, yep, see, now all of his homework is gone, right? So even, Andrew, if you wanted to delete these sections 1 and 2 that you have in there, you could do that for me also. That saves, I don't know, like a teeny little bit of space, but every little teeny bit, if it's across 100. So just hang out for a couple minutes until you guys have a chance to do all that. I know that some of us, this is easier than others because some of us have everything all in one tab, so it's easy to grab. I think, Jack, you have your stuff in a bunch of different tabs, so that makes it a little less convenient. But, take your time. It's no rush. We needed to do this at some point. We'll take some time now. Those of you that are at home doing this, again, I'd like you guys to do this as well. All we're doing is moving the things from our shared section of our notebook to a private section of our notebook. Just copy and paste, just kind of like I showed you guys in the screen share.
Mr. Kulak,
Yes.
did I move my chapter 4 homework too or no?
I would say you can move everything in your Chapter 4 homework that has been graded already. Yes. So as long as I've seen it and I've marked it in, it's good. I know some of you guys had stuff that turned in like a little bit late that missed when I was checking and got stuff marked as missings or whatever. And like, if I haven't check marked it and you're like, oh, I know this thing was late, I wonder if he's seen it or not, like check to make sure that I checked it in. I did some checking in this morning, but you know, like I miss things or I forget to do things. And if it's ever the case where it's like you notice that, hey, I moved this thing, but I guess it hadn't been checked because it's still missing in the grade book, like send me an email and move it back and I can always check it again. It's not that big of a deal. But I try to be trying to be pretty flexible on all of that. You know, and I appreciate this, guys. It will make my life considerably easier. So Hallie, I'm just looking at yours right now, so it looks like everything is basically gone. I see like you're just getting ready to move that right now, so I assume it'll disappear here when the sync kind of catches up. Okay, everybody feels, anybody still kind of working on moving things? It's okay if you are. Again, I don't want to move on until you guys have gotten a chance to get, you know, things sorted out and we get our house in order here a little bit, but I really appreciate the help on this. It's been a very frustrating battle here over the last couple of days trying to manage no resources and like deleting these temporary files, only have them back by the end of the day. And by the next lesson I'm starting to do, like I'm running out of space on the recording again. And this will be I think this will make a big difference and be a big help for me just to reduce the amount of, you know, like the amount of system requirements that this was tying up. Because it was like 40 gigs at some point. Like if on Friday I cleared all the temp notebooks and shut OneNote and didn't open it again, it was like 40 or 50 gigs of space. And as you guys know, your machines don't have a tremendous hard drive on these little tablets. You know, you have whatever 100 gigs or something, which sounds like a lot until you have like, you know, like 3 1-hour video recordings of lessons that are all like 10 gig each. And then it's like all of a sudden you're out of space pretty quickly, even if you're having, you know, without a lot of extra stuff going on. So I appreciate your help in getting this straightened out. It will make a big difference for me. Just FYI, I am going to leave everything in the content library though, at least for now. I don't want to, I know that even if you're working on reviewing things or working with a tutor on previous things, or maybe you just want to go back and refresh before, you know, an exam, there's a topic from the previous chapter that you know is still causing a problem for things that you're doing in the next chapter. I don't want to get rid of that stuff for you guys. So for right now, I'm going to leave the content library the way it is. If it becomes an issue, it may be something where I warehouse it later at Power School, but I don't want to do that unless I kind of have to, because it is awful convenient to have it all in OneNote and not have to like download it from Power School and then put it into OneNote and then do whatever you're going to do. It makes it much easier to just have it here. So for right now, I'm going to just kind of leave it the way it is. If that becomes an issue, though, we'll let you know about it. And if you want to, you can like copy the whole content library into your private section, and then we'll just have like a running chapter's worth of stuff, and you can just move it, you know, like copy it over into your own private section before the end of the next chapter or whatever. But I don't want to have to do that. I just would like, hopefully it'll be fine to just leave it there, and getting rid of all of, you know, like all the backups for all of your guys' stuff will clear up enough space that we won't have any more issues. But I'll let you know if anything else changes, and we'll do another day like this where we give you a chance to get everything sorted out before I do any major overhauls. Is anybody still kind of working on moving things around? Or if you are, let me know. If not, we're going to kind of transition to the next thing. Okay, so I don't hear any objections. So we're going to just kind of transition here. The next thing I'd like to do is to take some time here in class and take some questions from the previous homework assignments. So over the weekend, you guys would have made sure that you had completed homeworks 1, 2, and 3 from chapter 4. I'd like to take some time here in class to just take general questions from these things. If it's super specific, like number 7, or if it's just like, okay, so when I'm doing this, like, is it okay if I do that, or whatever you might have. I'm just going to take some time and open up for some questions. Bianca.
This might be a slight bit off topic, but have you assigned any homework for this Sunday?
Not yet.
Not yet, okay.
No. As of yet, nothing has been assigned. So if you need to look at your notebook or look at your OneNote and look at the previous 3 homework assignments, I know if I was a student, I couldn't say like, oh, I know what my question is until I looked at the homework that I did and go, well, I don't know, I did it. Right? Like, but this time that we're taking to go through, to take questions from the homework, this is an important time, right? Like, this is where you get a lot of feedback and you really get a sense of how well you know how to do something. Ava. Certainly. Okay. So I'm going to use some of the tricks that I kind of went through last week on Friday, I think, for this class. So the first thing that I notice when I look at number 20 is that the leading coefficient isn't 1. So in that case where the leading coefficient isn't 1, I'm going to check to make sure that, or check to see if there's a common factor that I can take out that makes the leading coefficient smaller or possibly even 1. So if I look at my coefficients 4, -8, and +20, I notice that there is a greatest common factor in all 3 of these coefficients. That common factor is 4. Oops. So I can do that. Okay with that, Ava? Okay. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to check for 2 numbers that multiply to give me 5 and add to give me -2. Well, it shouldn't be hard to see there aren't any 2 numbers that do that, right? So this is as good as you could have done. It's just taking out that greatest common factor of 4. Now I want to be clear. There are 2 numbers that do this. The problem is they're not integers, and they're not even rational numbers. They're going to be like some kooky thing with a square root in it. Eventually we're going to talk about how we can find those sorts of numbers, but that's beyond what we're doing right now. Right now we're just focusing on, like, if this multiplies to give me and adds to give me question has integer solutions to it. Things that we can find just by inspection. We'll talk later, like, how to deal with this sort of situation where we can't find factor or way to factor this using the integers. Integers being whole numbers, right? Because we're going to eventually extend this to make all polynomials factorable. The trick is, like, what are we factoring over? Ava, are you happy with that?
Yeah.
Okay. So again, this multiplies to give me and adds to give me question doesn't always have an answer. For right now, if it doesn't have an answer and there's nothing at all we can do, we can just say that it's not factorable. But eventually we're going to come up with a way to kind of deal with that. But not right now. Okay, who's next? Andrew. Sure. Okay. So multiplies to give me 9 times 16, which is 144. And then adds to give me 12. So we'll start multiplies to give us question. So one thing that I'm going to use a little bit of common sense here to justify something. So when I take a look at these pairs of factors that multiply to give me my number, the smallest sum that I'm going to get, in the case where they're both positive, like they have to be in this case, because we're multiplying to get a positive 144, is when the two numbers are as close together as possible. Right? The further they get apart, the bigger that sum is going to get. For example, 1 and 44 is as far apart as those factors can get. That's going to give us the biggest sum. The smallest sum is when those two numbers are as close together as possible. Everybody okay with that plan? So the closest together those two numbers can get and still multiply to give me 144 is if they're both 12. Everybody agree with that? Now that sum is 24, and even that is too big since they need to add to give me 12. So there aren't two numbers that do this. So Andrew, that you could stop here and just right, or say that there are no two numbers, since this isn't technically a factoring problem. Yeah, you're welcome. And that little hint about when we're searching for the two numbers that do the adding. Like if it's a small number, you need the two numbers close, the two numbers that you're multiplying, they need to be close together. If it's a big number, they need to be farther apart, which I think is helpful, at least in terms of okay, where should I start looking unless you want to go exhaustively and do all of them. But 144 has a lot of factors. I was not interested in going and listing them all out. It would have been a while. You're welcome. What are all the divisors? You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 8, 9, and then 12. I think would have been all the but it would have taken a minute to get there, and I looked at it and I knew what it was going to be already. It's like, well, that 12 isn't big enough. So let's talk about how we can tell without having to search through all of them. It's not wrong to search through all of them, right? But the goal is to be able to, to do these things quickly. So having a little bit of sense like that about, okay, this looks like it's not going to work. What do I really need? What's the minimum amount of stuff I need to check to make sure I know that it's not going to work? If the adding number seems too big or too small, there is a way to kind of go checking that right away. So that's what I went for. You know what I mean? Yeah. Who else wants to talk about one of these? Do we have more questions? Again, I'm happy to do a bunch of these if you want to do a bunch, or if you don't, that's okay too. But this is an important time in terms of getting feedback about what you know how to do, or corrections to what you've been doing, or just reviewing the process sort of thing. So Bianca.
On homework 1,
Okay. Does anybody else have a preference from homework 1, whether we want to do 9 or 10? Bianca doesn't. We can always, if somebody else. No? Okay. Okay. So when we say standard form, standard plus bx plus c, right? So to do that, I'm just going to combine the like terms in number 9. So 10x squared and 4x squared just becomes 14x squared. Negative 3x and positive 9x become 6x. And negative 10 and negative 5 becomes negative 15. And that's it. I'm done. Oh, no. Yeah, that is an oopsies. But remember, again, like terms means you have to have the same kind of x. When we add and subtract, the exponents never change, just the coefficients. To be able to add or subtract two things together, they have to have the exact same variable with the exact same exponent. And then we add or subtract the coefficients respectively. If we're multiplying or dividing, there the exponent's going to change also. And you can always multiply or divide two things together. Well, non-zero things. But that's always possible. Adding and subtracting, not so. Because they must be like terms in order to do the combining. And that's it. It's a good thing to review, right? Because it's, we've been away from algebra for a while. Last year we spent a bunch of time doing geometry. It's easy to kind of forget that subtle difference in how we handle the variables, whether we're adding or subtracting or multiplying and dividing. Okay. Anybody else? Okay. All right. Well, let's talk about what the plan is for the remainder of our time today. So we've been working on these factoring skills like on worksheets 2 and 3, right? Yes? And I've made a point of remarking about how this is a really important skill, right? We talked about this when we started talking about factoring, that of all our first semester skills, this one is maybe our most important one going forward, the one that you're going to rely on. And the expectation is that we'll be able to do this, quickly and accurately kind of going forward. Well, that's what we're going to practice doing today. So we're going to do a couple of timed practices. Yep. Just to give you a chance to see where you're at. I'm not going to do any of this for a grade. All we're going to do at the end of these timed practices is to get a count of like how many you were able to finish. We'll go through the answers and we'll get a count on how many you got right. And that's it, just to give me an idea of like where we're at, how much practice do we still need to do on this stuff? Like going forward, what do we still need to do? What do I still need to do better? What do you still need to, get some more practice with? But I think it's important that we're able to at least start trying to do these things a little bit faster. Okay? So we're going to do 3 practices today that are timed. The first practice is just going to be a sheet of problems that say multiplies to give you whatever, adds to give you whatever. And you're just going to find the 2 numbers. Okay? There's going to be 10 of those. I'm going to give you 15 seconds per problem, which makes a total of 150 seconds or 2 minutes and 30 seconds. At the end of that, we'll get a count on how many we're able to complete, and then we'll go through the answers and we'll get a count on how many we got right or wrong. Again, no judgments on any of those things. Like, again, this is practice. You didn't know it was coming. It's not assigned a grade. It's just giving me an idea to kind of get an idea, or to tell where we're at. What do we still need to work on? What do we feel okay about? So that I can plan the rest of this chapter moving forward, because this is a skill that I don't want to shortchange, right? I want to make sure that I have a good idea of where we're at with this. Okay? The next two sheets are going to be actual factoring problems, but they're all things that can be done with the shortcuts. Okay? So they're all going to be things where the leading coefficient is 1. Ava? Yes. Seeing as there's a little bit more work to do there, I'll give you a little bit more time for the first sheet, and then pull back a little bit of that time on the next try. But the next two sheets are just factoring situations where we can use the shortcuts. Okay? And we'll do the same thing on those. After each one of those, I'll get a count on how many we're able to finish. We'll go through the answers and get a count on how many we're able to do correctly, just to give me an idea going forward about like what do we still need to work on and how much more work do we still have to do to get good at this. Okay? So I'm going to pass out the first sheet. You guys can clear your desks of everything but something to write with it. You can have a calculator if you want. I guess it doesn't really matter to me. But leave these face down on your desk until I tell you to flip them. And I'm not doing anything until Ava comes back. So you might have a minute or two of just kind of relaxed time. So like roll your shoulders a little bit, like stretch your hand out. Again, if you want to use a calculator, you're welcome to do that. But we're done with the tablets today. You can put those away or off to the side. Cool. Just practice. So there's no grade associated with it. It's just to get me an idea of where we're at and how much more work we need to do. Are we ready to start moving forward? How much more practice do we really need to do on this? Is it an issue where like I can do them but I'm not fast, or is it a situation where like I don't even know how to do things? So that's all.
Yeah.
Right? It's not a big deal. I'm not even going to look at your sheets that even. I'm just going to ask like we got at least this many, or this number, they're going out. So. There's no pressure there. Those of you that are home and you want to do this as well, I put these 3 sheets in the content library. So they're called Factoring Practice 1, 2, and 3. We're starting with Factoring Practice 1. You can, if you're ready, you can start when I say start. We're doing 2.5 minutes for the first sheet for Factoring Practice 1. If you're not ready when I start, you can always time yourself. I mean, you have a phone with a timer on it. It's not that hard, right? But that's the plan. So if those of you that are at home and you want to try to follow along as best you can, I encourage you to do so. But I get that, like, things in the content library take time to sync, and like there's tablet issues and you're at home and you don't have a sheet of paper on your desk and maybe you're not ready to go when I say go, but like do the best you can, and if you need to time yourself separate, that's okay. Everybody okay with the plan?
No.
Okay. On your marks, get set, begin. That's about halfway through. I'll give you another call at 10 seconds. Ten more seconds. And pencils down. Okay, so we're just going to get a little speed check here first. So again, we're going to do a show of hands, and then we're going to say show of hands, at least one finished. So at least one means if you did one or more, you should raise your hand. So at least means that many or more. At least two. At least three. At least 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay. So good. So it seems like at least, like most of us are able to, the average number was maybe 5 or 6, which is not bad as a starting point. Let's go through and check these to give you an idea of which ones you're doing, if you did things right or wrong. So here we go. So here are the pairs of numbers. So feel free to please check your own. Again, there's no penalty for getting things wrong. It's just information for me to get an idea of where we're at. Like, are we fast but not accurate? Are we accurate but not fast? Are we struggling with both? These are all good things for me to know in terms of me figuring out how much more of this do we need to do. Is that a little better? Oops.
When are we planning to have this test?
Won't be this week, won't be next week. We still have a lot more things to do in this chapter. This is a pretty big chapter.
Okay.
So I'm not in a rush to do it either. Like, this is an important one. Like, I want to make sure we do a good job here. Because this is a skill in particular, if we're bad at quadratics, that causes problems in several chapters in the future. So I'm not in any rush to kind of bulldoze through this and get on to the next thing. This is an important one. Okay. Has everybody had a chance to check their sheets? Good. So we'll do the same thing, at least one correct. So if you got one correct or more, you should raise your hand. At least 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, so it seems like in general, the ones that we're able to finish, we were getting correct, but for the most part, right? You might have missed 1 or 2 along the way, but it seems like we're doing okay with the procedure. It's just a question of making sure we're fast enough, right? Does that seem like a fair statement for a lot of us? Andrew?
For 5. If I put -8, -9, same thing.
Yes. The order does not matter of the two numbers. That's a good question. Okay. So let's do the next one.
You want these back?
I do not. These are, you can just set them aside, you can draw a picture on the back of them, you can hang on to it for your own means, but I'm going to give you the next one. Again, leave this face down on your desk till they'll tell you what to do with it.
Yeah, I get the road. What? That's crazy, bro. I know. That's crazy, Peter, but I can't.
This next sheet is going to be actual factoring problems. All of these factoring problems are ones that we can do with the shortcut. So they should be able to be done really about the same speed as which you did the previous sheet. I'm going to give you a little bit more time because it seemed like we were a little shy on time on the last one, and the scale's a little bit more. Not a whole lot more, but a little bit more. So I want to make sure I give us a little bit more time here. So we'll take 4 minutes on this sheet. Okay? So, again, what this will look like when you flip over is you're going to just have quadratic polynomials. They'll all be ones that you can do with the shortcut, but that's all it's going to be. It's just a polynomial. And I'm going to ask you to factor those. Okay? Just so that we're clear. We're not ready to flip yet. I'll tell you in a second. We're going to take 4 minutes to finish or to work on this. And we'll do the same thing when we finish. We'll get a check on like how many we're able to do and the speed in which and the accuracy which we're able to do them. Any questions about what's going to happen? Okay. Ready, set, begin. That's halfway. So 2 more minutes remaining if you're still working. That was 2:30. Just FYI, same amount of time as the first sheet has elapsed. And 10 more seconds. And pencils down. So we'll just get a little finish count here. Completed at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay. So it seemed like we're able to do a little bit more with the additional time, which is good. Let's get a check on these then. So I'll first 5, and we'll scroll down in a moment to let you see the second 5. But if I make it any smaller, I feel like people won't be able to read my chicken scratches. So again, you should check your own work. There's no penalty for things that are wrong. It's not like I'm grading this. I'm not even going to ever look at these. I'm just going to ask you on your honor, like, do the same thing that we did before and just ask you, like, who got at least 1 right, 2 right, etc. So just to give me a feel for where we're at, how much practice we need, what kind of practice do we need, etc. Okay? So just kind of check on your own. I'll leave this up here for maybe 30 more seconds, and then we'll scroll down to the next 5 so you guys can check the last 5. Again, the order in which these are written doesn't matter. For example, on number 4, you could have written x plus 2 and then x minus 3. That's the same thing. You could not have written, though, x minus 2 and x plus 3. That would be incorrect. Right? So the signs matter that are attached to the numbers, but the order of the factors doesn't matter. Okay? Ready for the next 5? Anybody still checking? Okay. There's 6 through 10. Okay. Has everybody had a chance to check? Yes. Good. Let's get a correct count. So at least 1 correct. At least 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay. So again, it seems like for the most part, the ones that we're finishing, we're getting right the majority of the time, which is good. So that it seems like we have a reasonable understanding of the process. We'll make some mistakes still here and there, but the biggest roadblock here appears to be kind of like the time and or like still being able to get the correct answers in a short amount of time. So, okay. I have 1 more for us to do. So it's going to be the same format as the first one. Or I'm sorry, the most recent one that we just did. So it's another just general factoring. I don't know that it's any harder. I would say it's the same length, the same format. I don't think there's anything on here that makes it decidedly harder than the previous one. The numbers aren't considerably bigger. They're still, everything is like a times table number. So they should be things that we can do with mental math if we need to. Obviously, you can use your calculator if you want. depending on how comfortable you are with your mental math skills, that's perfectly fine.
Imagine going online like Johnny does.
You'll be able to use your calculator on the test, so there's no reason we can't use the calculator now. Might as well practice the tool that we're going to use on the test, right? Before we start on this one, if you want to just kind of like shake yourself out, take a deep breath, relax for a minute. Take a little rest. I know that we've been concentrating here on doing these, so we'll talk about what we'll do next when we're finished with this, but it won't be anything terrible. So just relax for a minute or two here. We'll just take a deep breath and relax before we start the next one. So those of you at home, this is the factoring practice 3 that we're going to be doing. This one we're going to do, well, I was going to go a little bit less time. So that's going, when I say less, do we have to review this concept of less and greater?
That's so funny, Peter. I'm gonna laugh. Hold on.
So I was going to do like 3:30 here on this one. So we're going to shave 30 seconds off. Again, I'll give you a count or a warning at halfway and with 10 seconds remaining. Is everybody ready to go? Okay. Is your calculator ready now?
Yes, it is.
All right. On your marks. Get set. Go. That's halfway. Whoa. 10 seconds remaining. And pencils down. All right. Finished at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Good. So it felt like at least we were moving a little bit faster this time through, right? That's good. I bet the average number finished was better on that one with less time than the previous one. So that's good. Let's check our answers. Again, check your own, mark things right or wrong. There's no penalty on getting things wrong. Once we've had a chance to everybody check these first 5, I'll scroll down so you can see the next 5. And then we'll get a correctness count from you guys to get an idea of how we did. Yes, sir.
So there's no age, which is like the last runner. How do we select the problem? Like the number 5, how do we select that?
So that was one of the shortcuts. If we look at, it's like shortcut 2 from last time. Yeah, when the b equals 0. So you can do it like that. Okay. All right, you guys ready to scroll to the next 5? So here's the next 5. Again, kind of check your own.
Wait, you go done. There's always one. Just go one up.
Oh, it's only that side.
Yeah, 10 more.
No, it's right.
Like 10. It's like here's number 10.
Oh. Dude, that was the easiest one.
10 wrong would have been.
And 9.
I was the first one done, but I got none right.
I know. Do 10. Oh. Oh, good, good, good.
But I was so fast.
I made you fast. So he put my job.
I don't know why you got brought into this all of a sudden. I'm just over there minding my own business.
What is that?
8th grade, he taught me, Joe, man, Dr. Pepper's so good. I'm like, yes, I love Dr. Pepper. I see him one day. John, I got Dr. Pepper. Oh, I don't like Dr. Pepper anymore.
Hey, that was like, what's it called?
How do you not like barbecue soda?
All right, so let's get a quick count here. So at least 1 correct. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So just in one day with 3 little practices, you guys got a lot better, right? So this seemed to help. We'll probably do this a couple more times during the chapter. I'll just kind of randomly spend some class time. We'll do some more of these time practices just to continue working on this skill. Just FYI for everybody's benefit, time practices and the keys are in the content library. If you ever want to try some practice on your own at home, they're there in the content library, accessible to you guys. But that's all we're gonna do here today. So we're just gonna be done at this point. There's whatever, we have just a little bit of time remaining, not enough time to start something new. You guys did a lot of work today, and I feel like probably made a lot of progress. You guys feel better about factoring? Good.